but he was terribly disappointed that he wasn't going to get to be on our show. And he said he told his wife that he thought he was going to be on, and she was disappointed too. I told him, I said, your wife should have way higher aspirations for you than that.
Whenever I answer the phone, I'm like, hello.
What pissed you off?
It's a great argument to have.
I love my mom, but I think she's half crazy for doing that.
How dare you?
Do you work with your girlfriend, Mark? Or your wife, Mark?
I keep them separated. Sometimes I call people, they don't answer the phone, I'm like, them.
Wrong number, click.
Well, he's not that smart, but sometimes he sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Go.
Therefore, you're an ass, and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, but what do we know? I'm sure March Madness season rolling around, we can do some bracket betting.
That'll work really well for me.
You can still do the bracket. Is that one dude doing his $1 billion bracket again? Do you know?
I have no idea. No clue.
You know what? If I do the
I didn't do
bracket,
it last year.
I
want to try to do it all statistically. Like, which team should
Well,
win?
statistically, you shouldn't do it at all because it's just
Never.
a ploy to get your email address and contact information, and they're going to spam the shit out of you. Well, meanwhile, you have a 1 in 6 trillion chance of winning the $1 billion or whatever.
But here's the deal. If anybody is honestly in this day and age concerned about their email address getting spam, you've got a problem. I mean,
I agree.
People who don't, I do know people who refuse to give out their email because they're like, I don't want to get spam emails. You better have learned to deal with that by now. It's like not giving out your home address to places that actually want to mail you stuff because you're worried that they're going to give it to the companies that used to, you know, the junk mail companies that used to be like really big. What do I really care if you send me a bunch of junk mail?
It's just like the odds are so stacked against you to win that thing. Like, it's just a hassle. Why bother with?
The email thing only matters if you're like over like 60 and you can't tell the difference. But it's like when you go to like those websites and you're trying to download something, and then you got all those little web apps that's like, press here to download.
Those. Okay, so I get really frustrated at those. Like popular sites like, you know, MediaFire and all that stuff that you're meant to put up, like files for downloading, or even CNET. CNET.com is huge for it. They have file repository for a lot of different programs, and they specifically allow for ads that make it look like it's the download button so that you end up downloading some big spam virus program onto your computer because you think it was the button you were supposed to hit when really it was an advertisement. Why do companies allow you to put advertisements like that on your website? I mean, granted, you can get into the argument that, oh, it's money. They're earning money, but how does that not take away from your reputability?
Well, I mean, where else are you going to go to download stuff that you think
BitTorrent?
Yeah, well, that's not going to say keep you safe. I mean,
well, and by the way, like you look at one of the biggest companies in the world, Facebook, like all three of us have a membership to that. And by the way, this podcast we're recording right now also has a page on there. Meanwhile, every time we go on there, we're just assaulted with, you know, advertisements on both sides of the page and all over the place.
See, those, I guess I kind of learned to tune out those advertisements because I know, like, my mind tells me exactly where they're supposed to be, so I can look the other way on those. It's like the old GeoCities. People's very first websites they ever made, free websites through GeoCities. You used to design your GeoCities website around the fact that you knew there was going to be ads in this portion of your webpage, and you didn't want them blocking your webpage. So people knew if it was a GeoCities website, you just don't deal with that part of the page. Facebook makes me more mad that they want to control everything now. They want you to sign into everything with Facebook. I refuse to sign into anything with Facebook.
I don't have a problem with that.
Well, just because they've been proven to be like data breaching, like, or to have like data breaches and all that stuff in the past. Why do I want them to be able to link anything that I've linked to Facebook, which is a billion things? Location, like my current location, like, cause I have the Facebook Messenger app on my phone. You could theoretically get where I'm standing right this second at any point if you can get into their data.
and then I get your address, and then I know when you're out of the house.
You know the equipment that I have
What,
and what you want to
what,
steal.
what was that app that basically tell other people where you're at? Because I always thought that was really insane.
The what, like
Why would
Foursquare?
I'm not exactly sure which program it was, but basically you're out and about and you're like, I'm here, like drinking coffee in
Oh,
my
Well,
I mean,
neighborhood.
Facebook does that
yeah. Well, I think they do it
if you
through.
want to. I mean, you
Right.
have to voluntarily do it.
Right, and I've always thought that's really nuts. Like,
Well, no, I think
you can
sometimes
trust
it's
your
cool. Oh, it's the checking in. It was the check-in
Yeah,
app.
checking in is on
right.
Facebook
It's well, you weren't
and
there, Mark.
Foursquare too.
Um, so when I was back in Michigan a couple of years ago, I was hanging out with Erica and some of her friends, and she was huge into checking in anywhere she went, anywhere and everywhere that she went. She was checking in, checking in. And I remember we were sitting at Sharky's one day, and she literally like went to her phone and was like, did something. And I was like, did you just check into this place? And she's like, well, yeah, I check in everywhere. And I was making the argument, albeit I was being facetious about it because I was being kind of dumb. And I was like, aren't you worried that some random person that you know is going to like see that you're checked in here and come up here and find you and you really don't want them to? And she's like, oh no, come on. Who was worries about that? 10 minutes later, this dude from her work showed up at the bar and was standing next to her, and she was like, Jim, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I saw you checked in here on Facebook. I was in the area. I wanted to come up and see you. And this is a guy that I guess she had gone on a date with, and it didn't like go so well. So he was like now stalking her at this point. I was just like, that's scary a little bit.
I feel like
Well, no,
people who check in like that
But
crave attention.
exactly. She did it
but
herself. She did it
no,
because at the time she was somebody who wanted a lot of attention from people. I would have a big problem if Facebook just told everybody where I was at all the time, no matter what. I'm okay
right.
with the fact that if I wanted people to know, like let's say I was going out I'm back in Michigan randomly,
Yeah.
and I'm there and I checked into a place because I was like, anybody who sees on Facebook that realizes I'm back in town, like can come up and see. Anybody I didn't think to necessarily call, but might be like, oh, Jeff's in town. I'll go up and say hi to him real quick. Like I'm cool
But,
with that.
but you said like basically Erica did that so people would
Yeah.
know
Oh
and
yeah.
see that. I'm saying that the downside would be to say, hey, I'm not away from my house. Come rob me. And I mean, with Facebook, you're not 100% friends with all your friends on Facebook. So I think that's where the risk becomes. It's not like, hey, my family and friends that I know well that won't rob me, here I am. It's, hey, world, I'm away from my house. Come take my stuff.
I mean, but
I
but
think
that,
that's the foolish.
but then if you post anything on there and say like, yay, having fun from vacation, and you put up a picture of you at the beach, I mean that's the same thing, right?
Right, but you might have a house sitter or like that.
Maybe I have a house
A lot
sitter
less-
every time I go out.
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like I would never ever be Facebook friends with someone I'd be worried would rob my house. Maybe I'm wrong, I guess.
Mark uses
Yeah,
Facebook to
maybe.
more keep tabs on his enemies than he
I was
does
gonna
to
say,
keep
how
up
many
with his
houses have you
friends.
knocked off,
I mean-
Mark? Just
I mean,
from vacation. or
How many
wherever.
friends do you have? Maybe that are work friends. I mean, do you trust
a
them
couple.
100%?
Well, most of my work friends that I have like on Facebook, I literally have deleted everyone at first. Okay, so at first, yes, when people would friend request me from work, I'd be like, all right, I know you from work. But to like now, I'm almost to the point where if I've never hung out with you and I don't like you from work, I've deleted everybody from work, which by the way is kind of awkward at work when they realize that you are no longer friends with them. But it's like I've tried to, like, I'm definitely not a friend collector, and I've tried to
Right.
trim my friends list down to just
You don't
like,
need no friends.
strictly people like I know, and I'm not afraid of what I post around them. I guess I have a couple friends that like are quote unquote friends from high school that I don't really hang out with anymore. But well, even those people, they don't really know where I live anymore. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know.
I don't know. What I usually do is I'll check in somewhere and then stand by my back door with a baseball bat in the hopes that somebody comes in.
Hope somebody shows
I'm just like, I'm going to see who's been watching my Facebook because they want to rob me.
See, I'm always afraid that, I leave the house, I tell someone I'm out of the house, and someone from Michigan flies their plane over to Japan and breaks into my house. It's a concern of mine.
I'll try to do that next time you're out, Mark. I'll try.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I don't think keeping tabs on where everyone is necessarily the best thing in the world.
No, it's probably not a good thing and not a healthy thing, but I do, and maybe I'm way off on this, but I feel like we're at least due to kind of go away from that a little more, especially with all the data breaches and Edward Snowden and stuff like that. Like, I think people are going to start to wise up and not do so much of that.
So, I don't know. I kind of feel the opposite. I feel that it's like credit cards. I remember the first restaurant that I worked in that accepted credit cards, because McDonald's didn't accept credit cards for a long time when we worked there.
It probably changed. Since
Sorry, I have
credit
random people Skype messaging me that I have no idea who they are. But no, but credit cards, like, and yeah, every place accepts like credit cards now because pretty much nobody carries paper anymore. It's all about credit. We've talked about that before though. But in America, Mark, in America, so
Japan.
I worked at Starbucks. And I remember getting a credit card from a lady, and it was the very first time I'd ever dealt with a credit card transaction in my life. And I was like, okay, ma'am, can I see your ID? And she goes, my ID? And I like looked at her funny, and I was like, yes. And she goes, why do you need to see my ID? I was like, because I want to make sure that this is your credit card. And she goes, I'll just pay with cash then. And I was like, okay. No, and I was getting like really suspicious, but this was some lady, like she was in her like 60s. She didn't look like a threat. It didn't look like some lady like this is in the government area. She was well dressed. It didn't look like she stole somebody's credit card to go to Starbucks to buy like a cappuccino. And I was like, is there a problem? She goes, it's just the principle of the thing. Why I have to show you my ID to purchase something. And I was like, what is going on here? But she's probably the same lady who's going to get pissed off at the credit card company for honoring sales who somebody who stole her credit card did because it wasn't her making the purchases. Like, that's where I think it's really funny where we're going as a society is like, we want the convenience of everything to be in our favor, yet we also don't want to be bound and responsible for the fact that we're not going to make a credit card or people show an ID in order to prove it's their credit card. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
When was the last time anybody asked for your ID when you used your credit card?
Amazingly,
Like never.
Amazingly, the liquor store that I go to asks for IDs all the time. Good or bad, they know me now, so they don't ask me anymore. Because
maybe they did it because of your
with them.
age, though. I mean, is that for your credit card or because
no,
of your age?
It's only when I pay with the credit card. Only when I paid with the credit card when I first moved here and started going there. But now I talk to the guy, so they know me. But I watched the guy today. I went and bought some beer today, and he carded the guy in front of me, who was obviously well of age, like. But it was just because of a credit card.
Yeah, like, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, it's this weird thing where, you're supposed to sign the back of your credit card. Nobody ever does, I don't think. I don't. I know.
I don't either.
But I almost never get asked for ID, even though you're supposed to when that doesn't happen. But, and by the same token, like, I totally have seen people like you're talking about, Jeff, where they're just so inconvenienced by that whole thing of showing ID. But these same people, if someone stole your credit card or something and ran up this huge bill and nobody asked to see their ID, they would be furious about the whole thing. Well, why didn't you ask for their ID? You know?
That's exactly what I was saying. And I remember the first time that they started installing pay at pumps at gas stations. And I thought it was so confusing because I could go out to the pump, I could put in my credit card, pump my gas, and drive away.
Yeah.
Or I could go inside and pay, like back when I used to smoke. I often used to just pay all at the end because I'd go like grab a drink or a pack of cigarettes or something like that with it. And when you're inside and using the credit card, you had to sign. I always asked the guys, I was like, why do I have to sign if I pay in here, but I don't have to sign if I pay at the pump? And the guy was just like, no, store policy. Like, he had no idea either. Like,
here's another thing I never understood. You know, when you buy things online, what is the 3 little code in the back of the credit card going to prevent someone from stealing?
well,
like, you look at one side of a credit card, and they won't look at the other side of the credit card.
So,
is that the idea?
the funny thing is, all my credit cards that I have now, I can't say all of them, but my newest ones, all the information is on the back. Nothing's on the front anymore. The front,
Okay.
I'll show you the front of my card because I don't want you to see the back of my card.
Everybody take a close look.
It's got my name. That's it.
Yep.
Everything else is on the back.
Okay.
That's the way they all work now. Also funny is one of the credit cards that they just sent me in the mail, because I guess there's a new thing that all credit cards have to be chipped now, so that you can do the tap thing with them, though nobody really offers the tap thing, which is really strange, but that's a whole different story. The whole CCV thing, the 3-digit thing on the back, one of the purposes of that was carbon copies. You know, that doesn't print because it's not a raised part of the credit card. My newest credit card, it is. And I was just like, what's the whole point of this is that if somebody got a carbon copy of my credit card for whatever reason, for like an old carbon copy machine, that they wouldn't have all the information needed to make purchases. I think that's why they implemented that whole 3-digit thing in the first place.
You know what's really weird about that is that you talk about the whole carbon copy thing.
It's probably illegal to do that now too, or something.
I'm trying to think of when was the last time you saw a copy machine. Ka-chong.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say. Is, I was caught up like in this whole last Target. I think it was Target.
So was I. I got 5 years free credit monitoring from them, though. So I'm okay.
Right. Exactly. I was going to say that part was cool, but and I also had to like turn in my debit card and get a new one. Well, the new debit card doesn't have raised numbers on the front, let alone on the back, because nobody makes carbon copies anymore.
Nice.
It was just kind of interesting that my whole credit card, was flat, no raised numbers at all, because, that's kind of gone by the wayside. Nobody does that anymore. So it's kind of very weird that yours...
My CCV numbers are raised as well. Yeah.
I think it's weird, though, like, you probably use debit cards, right? And you put in the 4-digit code.
Not usually.
Why doesn't like you would think that would be something that credit cards would want to have when you use it? Like, slide in your credit card, put in a 4-digit code, just like you do your debit card when you use a credit card. That way,
I wonder
nobody can steal it as easily.
Yeah, I wonder why you can't. Because most of them now, you have to punch in your billing address or your billing zip code. So why couldn't they just make a spot online? Like, obviously, it's linked to my billing address. Make a spot online where you have to go set up your zip code or your PIN first if you want to.
And that'd be a lot harder to steal, because I could steal people's addresses easy enough. Just open a phone book, right? I always thought, like, that kind of information, that's easy to get. You should have something online where it's difficult to get, like a PIN number.
I do find it really funny when I'll get a paper in the mail and it'll be from my bank and they'll be sending me a new card and I'll be like, oh, why'd they send me a new card? There's a letter that says, like, your card may have been part of a data breach or whatever, so here's your new card. And I'm like, so for the whole time that this has been being processed and in the mail, you knew my card's part of a data breach and didn't bother to tell me, like, at all. Just send me the new card and hope that nothing happens in that couple days interim, like lead time.
I was just watching an episode of CSI, and basically the whole episode was talking about, like, someone stealing other people's identity. It's like, you go through someone's trash, you get some information, like they throw away a credit card application, they fill it out, they keep on using your information, and it's almost like they're just basically saying it's almost impossible to prove that it wasn't you who used the credit card and this versus somebody else. So somebody could take put out mortgages, take out loans, use your credit cards, get new credit cards, and just keep on filling the application over and over again. And the very little you can do to stop them.
Well, it's like Shawshank Redemption. Didn't he find it amazing how he could create a whole new identity via mail?
Right, basically. Or The Simpsons, where you can make a credit card for your dog.
They did that in Married with Children as well. Like real life. That wasn't cartoon. Real life, Married with Children. For sure.
Which, by the way, is why my wife and I only have one credit card and
What's
it has
because
a
I'm Married
two
with
thousand
Children?
dollar limit. Like we hate credit cards. Me especially. I think you know what? Lesson to all the listeners: don't run up credit card bills. Credit cards are just evil all around. Don't do it.
But
I no no
you
I
have
agree,
to.
I agree with don't run up credit card bills. I've never had credit card debt in my life. I pay off my credit cards all the time, but I solely use credit cards. To the listeners, I've also flown Southwest Airlines for free for the last 3 years because of it. So take that as
Right.
you will.
Well, here's
I
Oh,
made sure I got credit cards that give me points and miles
yeah,
and bonus
miles.
points for signing up and then miles like points for every purchase. I haven't paid for a flight in 3 years, and for a year and a half of that Julia was under me as a companion status because I had enough points through Southwest just from getting the bonus credit cards. She flew with me anywhere I wanted to for free. But I haven't
Right.
paid for a flight, and I've gone to multiple places for different conventions and things like that. I haven't paid for a flight yet.
right. Well, and that's fine and good as long as you keep that, your balance down to nothing. Pay it off
Yep.
every
Right away.
month.
Right.
Auto bill pay every month straight out of the bank account.
Every
Um,
get rid of it.
yeah. In fact, Mike, I don't like using credit cards at all. But in this society, you actually have to use credit cards because you can't build up credit without using credit cards. If you use a debit
Right.
card, even if it's a debit credit card, that does not actually build up your credit at all. So when let's say you're like 18 now, and when you're 25, you want to buy a house. If you don't use credit, there's no history of you actually being responsible. So therefore, you actually have a lower credit rating and can get less stuff.
So
Right. That's true. That is true. So you may have to get a credit card, but pay it off every month. The debt is the evil part. Don't carry a debt.
let me ask you this. Like, you know enough about like credit scores and things like that. I mean, probably more than I do about them. How come it's such a bad thing for somebody to check your credit? You've heard of taking hard hits on your credit score and things like that?
So what you're saying is after someone looks at your credit score, let's say 3 or 4 times, your credit card rating goes down.
Right. And that's why
I-
a lot of people ask when they post, like, where I find the places that I get these deals to get the maximum number of points for credit cards and things like that I got, which got me into the credit cards, to start using those, not only to build up credit, but figured if I was spending the money anyway, I might as well earn something while I'm doing it while these offers last. One of the biggest questions was, does anybody know if this credit card, if this is a hard hit on my credit report? And then some people would look into it and be like, yes, this one's a hard hit, but this one is not a hard hit. And it's like, well, what the hell does it matter? A credit card company, of course, wants to look at your credit to know if they can give you a higher balance or an interest rate or what interest rates and things like that. It makes sense. Why does that hurt me because you looked at my credit?
It's weird because I think the reason why is the possibility of you taking out more credit cards, but it really shouldn't matter.
But if they're looking at my credit, they can know how many credit cards I have. It's on my credit report. If they're
Right.
pulling my credit report, they'll know how many credit cards I have.
Well, but I think what Mark is trying to say is that if I apply for 6 credit cards all at the same time before mailing them in,
Oh, gotcha. That it would only show that you have one and you would get 6 more at one
Right.
time.
exactly.
So, but it penalizes me because you looked at my credit for the aspect of making sure I don't get enough credit cards. You're going to hurt my credit.
Well, but if you do it that many times, maybe they just assume you're up to no good. I don't know. I really don't know a great answer for it, but I can totally see what Mark was just talking about, where I can inquire into 6 credit cards and, just wait till all the inquiries go through and then say, yes, I'll take all 6.
I'll take every single one. All of them with a
Every line of credit.
$20,000 balance.
That's correct.
I think it's really weird though. Like I was saying earlier, if you don't use a credit card, your credit card rating is lower. And I understand you don't have a history of showing that you're responsible. But if you're not using a credit card and you're up to 26, 27, it's probably because you're responsible enough not to use a credit card.
Or you don't trust yourself enough to be responsible with a credit
Wasn't
card.
that showing that you're responsible?
No. It's like my thought on the whole AA process.
Okay.
I don't think by completely shielding yourself from something for the rest of your life that's actually showing responsibility to be able to overcome something.
I don't know. See, go ahead.
I was gonna say one of the South Park episodes was exactly about that, and at the end, like Stan's dad thought he was an alcoholic and gave himself over to AA, and the whole episode was, about him saying that he couldn't do it without it because it was a disease and he had no power to control it. And then Stan told him at the end, he's like, "Look, if you just hide away from alcohol for the rest of your life, you're just making yourself like more of a victim to the hiding from alcohol." Just like you were a victim to the alcohol when you were drinking too much. You got to find like a happy medium. And I'm not saying that for all like anybody, people who are in AA and stuff out there. I'm just making the analogy between the two. If you know that you're so irresponsible with a credit card that you just don't get a credit card, yeah, it's being responsible in one set, but you're still not overcoming your problem on another side of things. It's learn how to do things at a happy medium. That's where.
Well, okay, so let's say you're someone who's has an addiction that's a little bit stronger. Let's say you're addicted to heroin.
Okay.
All right, and you know that
I'm saying go hang out at the crack house. Just don't
I'm just saying. I think there is a level of responsibility of taking yourself away from those kind of situations. That is being responsible. I'm not saying that you have to hide away completely from that kind of situation. Of course, you have to be able to control yourself if you do get yourself in a bad situation,
and that's where it comes from. Like,
and I don't buy this whole AA because I think you and I have a disagreement on AA. And my biggest disagreement with Alcoholics Anonymous is that they say that you're completely helpless against alcohol. And I think when you keep yourself away from alcohol, that is showing that you are not helpless, that you're doing something proactive, not to be, addicted to alcohol.
Yes, you are doing something proactive.
So, I don't know.
But when you make it so you can't go to like a family wedding because there will be alcohol served there, and therefore you can't get into that situation. You're helpless. You're not going.
Well, maybe at the start, though. I mean, most alcohol.
Yes, I agree. Like at the start, and I'm not saying anything bad. I think AA has helped many people out there. I believe it's a good thing for a majority of people who have been successful with it. But I still think there's a wrongful message that gets portrayed with it that.
Right. I agree too. I mean, my biggest problem with AA is like when people start drinking again, they're set up to just drink until they're obliterate themselves instead of like, well, I messed up, but I can get myself under control because I had control beforehand. Sort of like people who diet and like, I ate a brownie, screw it, I'm just going to eat the whole pan and then eat a whole cake and then because it's like
I've already failed, I might as well fail great.
I'm thinking, like you went 6 months without eating brownie. You screwed up a little bit, but I mean, look at that. You had 6 months of track record of showing that you could have control. So, just go and, exert your control again.
I don't know that I totally agree. I think there are people who just can't handle that addiction, whether it be, alcohol or heroin or whatever.
Right.
I know people in my life who are just like, they had to quit drinking. Like there was no option. Like they couldn't just casually drink alcohol. Like that's not an option. They just, every time they tried to casually drink alcohol, it just turned into this monster of a problem. So I've seen that firsthand. I don't think what you guys are saying is true at all.
No, I think what you're getting confused is I totally agree with you that there are people who cannot have any alcohol at all. But of those people who choose to avoid alcohol and not put themselves in that situation is exerting some kind of control over their situation and therefore of alcohol. It's like if I can force myself not to be around alcohol, that's having some kind of control.
But what I'm saying is if you let it interfere with your life to the point where, like, you wouldn't even go to your sister's wedding if they were serving alcohol there because you couldn't physically control yourself. And I'm saying, like, not right at the beginning when you're trying to, like, get yourself clean or whatnot. But, like, years later in life, you've been sober for, like, 3 years at this point. Are you going to cut off any ties with anything that has to do with whatever vice it is that you have because it's going to be present? And I'm not talking like going to, you know, a key party, but you're a sex addict and just sitting on the couch while everybody does their thing. I'm not talking about something like that. I'm talking about, like, you know, there happens to be a bar in the background, or there's free credit cards everywhere that they're giving out. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I completely agree that there's people who should never drink again and they can't, like, drink and control themselves when they start drinking. I'm just saying,
maybe I misunderstood that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they don't need to necessarily avoid the fact of being anywhere around any. I know people who used to shop at different stores because they couldn't shop at a store that sold alcohol because that was too much of a temptation. And I'm talking years after quitting, and that's just letting something else control your life completely. That's what I'm saying.
Well, okay, for me, I think if you have zero control over your alcohol addiction, that means you have no choice and you will always go to a place with alcohol. That means you can't avoid it. As in, not that I want to stay home and avoid it. You're compelled to leave your house and get alcohol because that means that you have zero control. Like breathing. You're compelled to breathe. Like, you can hold your breath for a long time, but you're going to end up breathing no matter what you do, unless you know.
But there are people like that with alcohol and drugs.
Oh yeah, there definitely are. Huh.
So in that case, that's zero control. But there's nothing you can do about it unless you lock that person in a room. They will always get drugs. They will always get alcohol. That's 100% zero control. But people who avoid places with alcohol, that's exerting control. I'm choosing not to go to a place with alcohol.
I agree with you to an extent. As I said, it's just, in my opinion, it gets taken too far sometimes by people who then their life was controlled by alcohol at one point. Now it's controlled by avoiding alcohol, which is like the complete opposite end, but you're still being controlled. Theoretically, alcohol's still controlling you at that point. It's just controlling you in a different way.
But that's way better.
But that kind of control is much better, right, than being controlled by alcohol.
It depends on how bad your alcohol problem was in the first place. You can't say which one's better or not. Yeah, I would bet it's probably way better. But I was just trying to think of a way to play devil's advocate on that one. I don't know.
I think we get a lot of people emailing us about this.
I was going to say, I'm going to have a long process of dealing with this email, I think.
Hey, don't worry. There'll be less emails that you have to sift through now because of
yeah, there you go.
Because of the other fix we made.
Well, we were talking about money for a while there.
We were.
So let's kind of do well, and Mark is, not kind of privy to this, but let's do sort of a brain exercise here. It just made me remember this.
Mark, you're not privy to a brain exercise.
I don't know, this thinking, it's a little difficult for me.
Well, that's not what I meant. But, so the Powerball Lottery here in the U.S., what is it, 6 or 7 states or something like that?
It's more than that, because most of the states that do Mega Millions do Powerball now. I think it's like 30 some states.
Oh, maybe it's 30 something, whatever. So anyways, the jackpot, if I'm not mistaken, is $380 million.
Okay.
That's a lot.
By the time people see this show, that money will be in my pockets.
Yeah, I was going to say, that drawing happens like the day we're recording this. Actually, what is it, like 11 o'clock at night? So like an hour from now.
I actually don't have tickets to it.
I mean, a ticket.
When I was at the store today, I realized I didn't have cash, and since you can't buy lottery tickets on credit,
right?
Because damn my credit cards and the miles, I couldn't buy. So I should blame the credit cards for losing me $380 million.
Well,
Well,
here's the thing that I think is ridiculous. You can't buy lottery tickets with your credit card, right? And
Correct.
that's to prevent people being idiotic. But you can take money for cash from your credit card, and then you can spend it on lottery, right?
Yup.
And then you're paying
Sure.
like 20% interest on the loan that you took from the credit card
Yup.
versus what you would pay with the credit card.
Correct.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
America.
That's that's right. Well, anyways, let's get back on track. This is serious stuff here.
Okay.
So we'll start with Mark because he has zero chance at this for sure.
You don't know. My mom could have played the lottery, and then I get it through inheritance.
If you had $380 million, what would you do with it?
See, because it's not enough for what I really want to do.
What in the world do you really want to do with more than $380 million?
I would actually like to invest into a space escalator. Escalator.
A space escalator.
Space elevator.
A space
slash-
escalator would be the awesomest thing ever. You should definitely invest in that.
No, a space elevator or
Talk about
some
a
kind of machine that shoots you out into outer space, like some kind of track that shoots you out. So I mean, I don't know, but I'll probably go out to outer space.
Can't you do that? Can't you buy a ticket for like 20 million?
Yeah, I mean, I could go several times, Jeff.
That's true. You could go several times.
I'm sure I'd bring my wife along. It's not like, oh, I'm going to space. See you later, honey. She's like, oh, I want to come too.
That would
I
be.
guess. And I want to go first class. I don't want to go like coach to outer space.
I'm not sure they have first class to outer space yet.
Not
think
yet.
You can either afford it or not.
If you're going to outer space, that's first class.
That's
Maybe
true.
buy a nice island. Actually, I think what I would really do is I would probably just travel like all over the world. That's basically what I do now, ish. Just on a less grand amount.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
So I think I would buy a lot of houses.
I thought he was going to say buy a lot of lottery tickets. I'll use my lottery winnings to buy lottery tickets.
No, definitely not. Like, so I'm here in Michigan now.
Why don't you just buy Michigan?
What's
Yeah.
that?
For $380 million, just buy Michigan.
At this point, you could probably buy Detroit for that. Pretty
Then you
sure.
make yourself mayor.
Well, you'll end up in jail eventually, because they always do. But
Well, I'm not going to host parties with strippers and eventually shoot them. So I think I'd be probably okay on
where's
that.
the fun in that then?
But
Not host a party at all.
but no, I think
Don't
I
go
would
to one of
probably.
Mike's parties. You get shot.
I have family in North Carolina, so I'm sure I'd buy property down there. My in-laws are from Houston, and actually we love the Houston area, so I'm sure I'd buy property there. Hawaii, we went to Hawaii for our honeymoon, and we absolutely love that, so I'm sure I'd buy property there. Like I just know we would travel a ton. Like I think I'm on the same page with Mark. My wife and I have always wanted to do like a trip to Europe. So I'm sure that would be in the stars. I think we would probably just take a lot of time to, not work and just travel.
Really, you wouldn't work still with 300 million.
Well, you know what? I don't even want to say that because I feel like,
Bullshit. You wouldn't work.
well, I think there's a definition of work where right now, like I work to pay the bills. And I think there's also a definition of I've traveled the world, including Europe and Asia and all these places for 5 years. And now I'm ready to come back and actually own a house that I live in for a good substantial amount of time. I think you're going to get bored at some point. So whether it be like, even if it's just like a part-time job, I think at some point I'm going to want to do something that, again, it's not just going to be like a, crappy job that I need to pay the bills. It's going to be something that's interesting to me. Like, so I'm super interested in like woodworking. Like I totally do like small projects and stuff in my garage now because that's fun for me.
Yeah.
So if I can take some classes and, start doing that, like not just as a hobby, but make money off doing it, like that might be something I'm interested in. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I mean, whatever you sell your items for, it wouldn't really matter. Like, if you sold it for a penny or $1 million, well, maybe $1 million, but I mean, it wouldn't really matter to you.
Right. Well, and that's true, but it's still doing something that I enjoy doing, but I'm getting paid for it at the same time, and I still like have acquired the ability to do something at a high level, that I like doing, and it's affording me a quality of life, you know.
Mm,
I
mm.
think if you have like an insane amount of money and you just want to sit around your house forever, like there's no way that's going to be.
No, I mean, staying at home would probably be boring,
See,
but
You can't
I
travel
don't,
forever.
I don't know. I would definitely do a lot of traveling, but I think I would also invest in a kick-ass house that has
Right.
everything in it that I would ever still want, like this massive like TV for like throwing football parties with awesome surround sound, like area for like a super computer setup and like a recording studio in there for me, because at the end of the day, no matter how much traveling I do, I still want a home to come back to,
right.
because you always still like your home no matter
Yeah, yeah.
what. So I'm going to make sure it's the kick-ass home. And it wouldn't be here in DC because I could probably only afford a half of what I would actually want with $380 million in DC. Like that's that. I mean, that's just being completely
It's
like
chump change, yeah.
serious. It's so ridiculous.
I can only buy like only half the Senate with that
See,
money.
I think a fun thing to do with it would be to find a way, like, then you'd have to invest a certain amount of money. Find out how much money would I have to invest to still have like $100,000 a year income just off of like the interest of it, to make sure I'm sustainable forever.
Yeah,
I,
you
I would
have to
guess
invest.
I would guess like $100 million invested in something would probably give me enough money to live off of, like with that interest and
Right,
things
forever.
like that.
Right.
The rest of it, do something fun and do some type of scholarship fund, but not just in a we're a scholarship fund, yay, like throw ridiculous contests or something like that that people have to do, like a fun thing to do, but like that high schoolers or young, like early college students like compete in, whether it's in like the restaurant industry or something ridiculous but fun, to get like scholarships out there to people, but in a fun and ridiculous way to do it where you normally wouldn't get a scholarship. Oh,
So
all these.
You would make like a wipeout course or
Hell yeah, that would be
show,
that would be
and you have to
awesome.
compete just to
That
get a
would be-
scholarship to college.
And I bet we could make it so that you could make it tax free for the students as well, because you could be like, instead of winning $50,000, you're winning a $50,000 scholarship that probably goes a lot farther. I bet there's some tax loophole or something like that that makes that go in
Yeah,
a
probably.
slightly better way. And hell, if you're only doing like 50 G's at a time out of like $200 million that I have left over after doing everything I want to do, this thing can go on for years. Like, or we could just do like 50 winners a year, and I don't know. I think it'd be.
Or you have to compete like what's that American Ninja show?
American Ninja Warrior.
Ninja
I mean,
Right, Ninja Warrior,
that-
where like hardly anybody ever wins. but
yeah,
you
that would take.
compete.
That's too much training. People dedicate their lives to American Ninja Warrior. I want something that the nerdiest nerd to the jockiest jock can still have the same fighting chance at.
Like a game of joust.
That would be kind of funny.
By the way, I would definitely put at least like $1 million towards a contest for listeners of this podcast because they were here at the beginning. You know what I mean?
I bet we'd get a lot more listeners if they found out that
Yeah.
you were giving them $1 million and
I was
you
gonna
just
say,
won
I
the
have a
lottery.
hunch we'd be trending on Twitter.
Oh, I can.
Oh, did you hear about the Monopoly game with real money? Like, I think they're
Yeah,
releasing it
France
somewhere
or
in the UK.
Wait, what?
So, like, I read an article, and I think it's the UK. It could be France, where they're actually either instead of using Monopoly money, they're exchanging it with real currency, and they just hid that game in a group of all these Monopoly packages.
Oh,
So somewhere out there, somebody's going to open a package,
have like
open up
$1,000.
the game, and then play with real Monopoly money.
No, it's like 23. Like if you add up
Yeah.
all the Monopoly money, it's real money. It's like $23,000.
Is it that much money that's in Monopoly?
Yeah, because they're $500 bills, and there's a bunch of them.
Oh yeah, that's right. For some reason, I was thinking you only started with $200, but that's just what you get when you pass go.
Right.
Yeah, how much do you start out with in Monopoly? 1,000?
I just
start with,
or 2,000? It might be 2,000 or 1,500. It might be 1,500.
Yeah, something like that.
somebody do the math on this. It's two 500s, two 100s, two 50s, six 20s, five 10s,
14.
five 5s, and five 1s.
1420, 1470, 5 5s, 1495, 1,500. Yeah.
1,500. Boom. Good math.
Yeah, right there. Maybe I just knew it was 1,500, so I was just pretending to count.
Well,
Yeah,
good
that's
memory.
what I got. So
Remember how much money you hand
That's
out.
true. I used
That's
to
a
play
waste of youth.
So when you play Monopoly, there's all those special rules that you can play with all the time. Do you guys do anything with free parking when you play?
sometimes.
I did when I was younger, yeah, for sure.
Like when you put like the taxes and stuff, or what goes
Yeah.
into the bank for free parking. That really screws up the game though when someone lands on it.
It does. I also have played a rule before where if you land... Wait, what is it? It's... If you land directly on something, you have to pay... Or if you roll doubles and land on somebody's property, you have to pay them double the rent. There's all these... I used to play a game on my phone all the time. It was the original bathroom game with my old flip phone and things like that. And there was all these different options that you could check.
Nice.
And I remember I used to play games trying all the different ones out to see if I liked them. And there's some ridiculous... I'd never heard of some of these options before.
Yeah.
Apparently you don't know too much about the options because I was...
I mean, everybody has their own house rules when they play Monopoly. Usually, like the house rules are just to make the game go faster because Monopoly
can last forever.
and monopolize all your time, kind of.
Monopolize your time.
Yeah.
That wasn't clever or original at all.
No, I know.
I think they should make it so, granted I used to play some games like this, but there should be a special like chance card in the middle of it that's like shovel up your properties and deal them out.
Right.
You keep the houses on, even if you split up a Monopoly, you can keep the houses on it like that are split up amongst 3 different people now. I think that would be cool.
Or like a chance where you could actually start building houses without having a Monopoly. Like
Yeah, that would be...
property
See,
you want.
I would like that. And I don't like the fact that you have to do like 1 house per property in the Monopoly before you can build a second house.
Yeah.
Like that
Well, when I was a child, I didn't know the rules because fuck reading rules. and what I used to do is just we used to play and because we didn't know the rules, we started building property right away as soon as you bought a property.
Baltic Avenue's got a hotel, baby.
Yeah, you just start building hotels without getting a Monopoly. And as a kid, I didn't know what a Monopoly was, so I didn't know you had to have a Monopoly to start building hotels.
You know what's funny is I wish I could cite the source.
Milton,
Maybe it was
oh wait, it wasn't Milton. Who did that game? Was it Parker Brothers?
Yeah, I think Parker Brothers.
I can't remember, but
Hasbro?
what I'm thinking of is I heard or read or something somewhere that actually Monopoly, the game itself, was actually started as an anti-Monopoly type board game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it was sort of stolen by like a major company and converted over to this, what it is now.
Yeah.
Oh man, I wish I could remember it because I heard about this somewhere and it was like a whole like giant thing, and I feel bad that I can't give somebody credit for that.
I mean, the person who made it is Charles Darrow. That rings a bell. But it was Parker Brothers.
You know what? I do remember what it was. It was the Stuff You Should Know podcast.
Yeah, okay.
That's what it was. They did a Monopoly episode. That's exactly what it was.
Monopoly does show how bad monopolies are because no matter what game of Monopoly you're playing, near the very end, what does everyone try to do? They try to go to jail. and you never pay to get out of jail after you have Monopoly, because that's the only way you're gonna win.
That is true. And then
And
you
the guy who wins financially crushes everyone else on the board.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, one of those games, Monopoly is one of those games I really didn't like playing as a kid, anyways, because halfway through you either eliminate someone and then you're stuck playing for like another half an hour to an hour, and the other guy is just like, or girl is just like, okay, well, I'll go do something by myself for an hour, I guess. I mean, really, what are you supposed to do? It's not like, oh, I took someone out and the game's over. It's I took someone out,
and now
play,
there's
keep on
more
playing,
people.
somebody
I
else
have
gets
to
eliminated.
eliminate all my other enemies.
Well,
And then after a point, you know who's going to win.
and
So.
but sometimes you don't, because sometimes you get annoyed. There's like 3 people left, and you're beating both of them pretty bad money and property wise. But one of the people happens to land on the other person's property, which is what officially bankrupts them. So now
Yeah.
all their stuff goes to that other person, and all of a sudden your lead goes to nothing, all because of like something that really
double up.
shouldn't have happened.
Right.
And now you got a long, long, long battle when you're more even matched, and
Right.
it's just like then it's like playing war. It's mainly just like, okay, when are we done with this card deck?
But at
Right.
least there's some strategy with Monopoly. Like games like Sorry or whatever, it's all chance. Like the more I think about it, like games like Candyland and Shoots and Ladders,
Yeah, all
they're
those
all
games are chance.
they're all BS games. They're like there's no strategy involved. You're just rolling a die and moving your pieces.
What's
Like
the point of those games, though?
There's
what
what?
what lesson do you get besides like how to count up to 5?
Family
Nothing.
entertainment.
Those games are for 3-year-olds. I literally play those with my 4-year-old now.
I only-
There's
I
no.
only play- with my children.
Mike's family's already behind. He just admitted. He said they're 4 3-year-olds, so he plays them with his 4-year-olds.
No, there's no higher strategy at all. It's just, spin a wheel or roll some die and move, and it's chance.
well,
Just kids like them.
that's like the game of life.
Yeah.
The game of life. I don't know how it is anymore because I know they changed it up. But the original version in the game of life, the very beginning, you get you based on chance land on what type of profession you have.
I
And
thought
it's,
you had to choose.
it's in the original version you landed
Yeah.
on it. It was a square on
You're
the
right.
board.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you landed on the doctor, and you were the only one who landed on the doctor, you won the game. Your salary was the highest, so every payday you got more money than everybody else. And the person who got the bad roll, that got the high school graduate that only made $18,000 a year, they counted them out early because they couldn't make the amount of money that you had at the very end of the game. It was so pointless that we used to start playing it by giving everybody the doctor salary just so it would be a more evenly matched game.
I think they changed it where you can choose to go to college or not, and then it gives you the option of selecting your card from
like
more.
3 that you pull out.
Well,
Yeah,
no.
it's
They always had, you could choose to go to college or not.
Yes, they did always have that, which it was so dumb to ever not go to college. You only saved yourself like 5 spaces on the board for a
Right.
significantly
And
lower
what it
salary.
was is, I believe, like, if you went to college, you got 3 draws at like the profession card or something, whereas if you didn't, you only got 1 or something like that.
And
But the newer version is really, really dumb. We actually accidentally purchased the newer
I
version.
often accidentally
Accidentally.
purchase board games.
Well, no. We wanted to buy Life. My wife and I wanted to buy
We thought
The
it was the
Life.
secret elixir that gave us
because we
eternal
knew how
life.
cool it was.
Turned
You
out
know,
to be
we
the new
used
board
to
game.
love that. But the newer version, it's like when you get a profession, like you have to draw a certain amount of cards. And also like your house, it's like the same situation now. So like you might be forced to buy a more expensive house.
Does the
Whereas
house do
before-
anything for you?
What's that?
Does the house actually do anything for you in the game?
No, it just costs you more money. So there's like all these, well, and there's something else too that you also have to, and I can't remember what it is now. But there's another stack of cards that you have to draw from too. It's just like totally, random chance how much money you have to pay for something, you know,
I,
before you kind of got to a little bit of option with these. It's really
I don't remember in the game of life. Is there any point of finishing first?
If I recall, on the original one that I had, the one that you didn't actually have profession cards like you're talking about, it was before that, like spots on the board got your profession. If you were there first, every turn that you were in, like the millionaire's mansion or the tycoon mansion or something that they called it before somebody else got there, you had a number that you chose right when you got there that you put like your little car on, and every time you spun, if you landed on that number, you got like $100,000 or something like that. So there was a chance, like a 1 in 10 chance, essentially, that you could start earning more money every turn that you were there early. If I recall, that was the only advantage from being there first.
Well, that's another thing about the new version too, is that there's certain ways to get these little random like cube things.
Your children, do they go in the car with you?
No. These are actual like cube cardboard pieces, and you draw them at random at certain points during the game, and at the end of the game you flip them over, and there's different dollar amounts that vary quite a bit. So regardless of like how you play the game, depending on how many of these things you have and how well you draw them, like it totally impacts the game. Does that make sense? Like you might grab one card that's 300,000, you might grab 5 cards that are 50,000. Well, it doesn't matter if you drew 5 cards that are 50,000, because the one card at 300,000 is going to beat you. That sort of thing.
Right. So it's just more of the same, just random chance.
The long and short of it is that, yeah, the new version of life with all these stupid cards and stuff, it makes the game not fun at all. I remember the game Jeff is talking about, and I used to like it a lot. But
I don't know why I used to like it a lot. I used to love it. I used to play with my family all the time, and no looking back, why? It was literally like, you had to be the doctor or you lost. Like, that's all there was to it.
Or you just keep spinning. Like, you have really little control over the game. You just keep spinning. If it did it all automatically, you would have the exact same game.
That's true. You could easily hit a fast forward button on that game and just simulate all the moves and calculate the ending.
Right.
But one thing that life had going for it was Z.
Yeah, the nice sound effect.
Mike looks puzzled. Don't tell
spinner?
me I took that away.
That's
The spinny thing that you spun for your...
Like the Wheel of Fortune wheel?
Did they change it to dice or something? I'd be very
no.
upset. Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Though Trouble, remember the old game Trouble?
Yeah, Trouble's a little bit of strategy.
With the Pop-O-Matic bubble?
It had dice, but it had a Pop-O-Matic bubble. It was the way to be.
Right.
I think you can move your pieces any way you wanted, so there was a little bit of strategy, I think. I can't remember if that's exactly right.
I don't remember.
I don't remember exactly how it worked, but I think you could move left and right. I mean, it was almost set up like a Trivial Pursuit board, but I don't remember what the end goal of that game was.
I think you were supposed to do a lap around, and then you're safe. But you had to move like 4 pieces to make a lap, and I'm not 100% sure, but if you landed on someone else, you get to send them back to where they were. So the strategy...
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I remember that being sort of like Sorry.
Yeah. Well, Sorry was very similar. I think one was you pressed the bubble, and one you threw a dice.
Trouble was
totally
upgraded Sorry. It
Well,
was
in
Sorry
Sorry
2.0.
I don't remember this for certain, but if you guys are saying Trouble, you could move either direction. Like, I don't think you could with Sorry. I think you had to go, like, clockwise.
Yeah, something like that.
I actually don't remember. It's been so long.
Do you guys play any of these newer board games?
We play some of the newer card games. What did we get? One called Flux, I want to say. Card games can be fun, and they're just, if made right. So one thing that I'm sure a lot of the viewers on this have seen, one of the newest card games, it's like another step up on Cards Against Humanity. They say it's very similar to Cards Against Humanity mixed with something else, because it's not Cards Against Humanity at all, but it's called Super Fight. And we played that when I was just at PAX South, and that game was so ridiculous. But you literally have like super cards, black cards and white cards, and one card is like you're a superhero, and then you match it with an attribute that you want your superhero to have, and then when you put them on the table, you actually get a random attribute, you know, from the pile randomly that you have to mix with it, and you battle one other person. And the whole point of the game is that you have to look at your superhero and your attributes, and you have to argue why you would win against the other person, and then the people at the table decide like who really won the fight. And I mean, I don't want to get into it too much with like examples, because a lot of people have seen the video that we played, but my first one was my superhero was a hippo, and his attribute was that he throws bears. Like, and he was fighting Gandhi, who had a sadness ray. Like, I mean, so we had like arguments, like we were explaining why our character would win against the other one, and then the rest of the table voted on it. So it gets ridiculous, but the cards don't dictate everything. It's the cards give you a guidance, and then your arguments.
I feel like the bear would crush Gandhi.
Oh, that one. The bear won that one. The bear lost to a redneck who used to be a bear. Was his attributes. So.
Well, no, I mean, I like those kind of games, like Cards Against the Humanities, where people decide, or the game you're describing. I think there's another one like Knee Jerk. Knee Jerk was another one that's where basically
apples to apples.
People,
Is that what you're gonna say?
I was gonna say apples to
like
apples.
similar to apples to apples.
Cards Against Humanity, all they do was stole apples to apples and made it dirty and made millions of dollars off of doing so.
I was gonna say apples to apples. Like my family with my even older daughter have been playing that for years at this point, and it's great. It's a good time for families. Obviously Cards Against Humanity is X-rated, but apples to apples is the same exact thing, and it's great for families.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I don't know.
Okay, well,
I don't know Knee Jerk though.
Knee Jerk's, I think, similar, where basically you use the cards to build up like a sentence, and it sets up like a situation like people say I'm ridiculous on a bus because I say these two words, and then people come up with the two words that they say, and then whoever's the decider decides which one's the best answer. But they have to give a reason why they accept your answer or don't accept your answer.
Now, are they real words that you just come up with, or are they like you have a set of cards in your hand?
No.
And
it's whatever you think of. So there is no cards to choose your answer from. It's whatever you think of, and only one person gets to decide, like, oh, that's a really good answer.
I don't know if I like that, because that bases way too much on having to think constantly on the fly with these things. Having a whole table of people thinking on the fly. I like when because that's what I like. Do you ever use the blank cards in Apples to Apples or in Cards Against Humanity?
Yeah.
I don't feel anybody ever uses those cards.
Well, it's I don't know, because like if I played the online version of what's Cards Against the Humanities, and people type in answers that are much better than the cards given sometimes, because if you could really fit it to the situation. So if you play on the online version, which isn't run by the people who make Cards Against Humanities, you randomly sometimes get a blank card, and then you could type in your answers, but nobody knows if it's
a real card or if it's
or not.
Not. I don't know. Oh crap! I just screwed up my screen completely. Hold. Either way, card game's good. There we go. See you guys. we should take a break. Let me make sure I get this thing fixed so I don't do that again.
Whenever I answer the phone, I'm like, hello.
What pissed you off?
It's a great argument to have.
I love my mom, but I think she's half crazy for doing that.
How dare you?
Do you work with your girlfriend, Mark? Or your wife, Mark?
I keep them separated. Sometimes I call people, they don't answer the phone, I'm like,
Wrong number, click.
Well, he's not that smart, but sometimes he sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Go.
Therefore, you're an ass, and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, but what do we know?